Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Bo and Joe Show. I am Joe, and I'm here with my co-host, Bo. How's it going, Bo? What's happening? How'd the week go?
Hey Joe, how are you? The week went well. The I don't know if you noticed the or had a chance to watch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It was a 2-day event, and what made it um, more interesting is one of my hometown former players made it to the Hall of Fame, and he probably, I think he retired, but he's totally affiliated still because he coached for many, many years after he stopped playing. Harold Carmichael is from my hometown, and he coaches for the
Amazing.
Eagles. He's still associated with the program, and so he's a hometown guy and a Philly guy, and he made it to the Hall of Fame. So that was really nice to see someone from my hometown make it to the ultimate, the highest level possible in terms of receiving an award. So well deserved. And then Drew Pearson, who is a former Dallas Cowboy, the original 88 wide receiver, the original Hail Mary from Roger the Dodger Staubach, also made the Hall of Fame. I grew up watching the Dallas Cowboys. I wrote about it in my book. I wrote the story of how I ended up becoming a Cowboy fan, right? You read it. And so when you live in Philadelphia and you say you are a Dallas Cowboy fan, that's not a good thing, because I'm sure you've heard about how passionate the Philadelphia market is for their Eagles, right? They talk about the fans throwing a snowball at Santa Claus. You hear about it every year during Christmas, during the playoffs when it's cold. Philly fans are misunderstood, but yeah. So it was a good weekend to watch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And Peyton Manning is absolutely, without a doubt, a class guy. No question about it. He knows what to say, how to say it in his Southern drawl dialect, and it still comes out powerful. It still comes out articulate and intelligent. You can't. I mean, what a great weekend.
So Adrian's already commenting on your topics. Oh no, I'm
Oh,
not. We're not getting. That's
we,
Justin.
we'll get to Justin. We'll get to Justin. We'll
Yeah,
get
we're
to
gonna get
Justin.
to
What?
that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's on
yeah.
my list too.
What did Adrian say?
So a couple
Couple of
guys were
guys.
inducted that were way overdue.
Yes, yes. And Drew Pearson, like Mr. Ferris, is from New Jersey. So I'm sure Mr. Ferris, my old classmate, appreciates a home state guy getting into. Oh, he's a Cowboy fan from New Jersey. Okay, okay. And I probably knew that in the back of my mind since he and I used to hang together our freshman year. I probably knew that, but forgot because it's been 30 something plus years since our freshman year. But yeah, so it was good, I'll even go a step further, Joe. A, um, a contemporary of mine from Villanova grew up in New Jersey, in the hometown area of where Drew Pearson is from, and she is friends with his niece, and she asked me to autograph a book, mail it to her, and she would deliver it to Drew Pearson. And
Wow.
apparently the niece did that. I just haven't heard because he's been busy. We'll see what he thinks about it in maybe a month when he comes down off that Hall of Fame high and things settle down. But yeah, so I at least signed a copy of my book and sent it off. So let's see what he thinks about it if he reads it, if he gets a chance.
Well, it'll be perfect timing because in a month, Bo and Joe will be a national phenomenon. It'll be perfect timing for him to come on. And if we can fit him in, maybe we'll have him on the show.
Oh, we'll fit 88 in. The original 88, we'll fit the original 88 in. No
All right.
question.
If you
No question.
insist. If you
Hey,
insist.
I just noticed something. I love that background of yours. I just
Oh,
noticed that. Nice.
I have a new setup, like a little, I built well, I built myself a little studio. So I'm up in my game. I'm up leveling. See, you're rubbing off
Nice.
on me. I haven't.
Nice.
So thank you.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
So I have a couple of stories that, we wrapped up the Olympic coverage, but I do have two heart-wrenching stories actually, and from the Olympics. They're not really, it's a good way to finally close the door on that book. I have a story about, I don't know if you read the story about the Polish javelin thrower. It's actually heartwarming and heart-wrenching at the same time. And I'm going to probably butcher her last name, but I believe it's Maria Andrzejczyk or something like that. And she auctioned off her Tokyo silver medal. She read about a child from her native country of Poland who had a serious heart condition, and they were having a fundraiser. So she auctioned off her medal, and she received the winning bid was $125,000, and that monetary donation went to help save that child's life. But I think that's so it's heartwarming in two respects. The family got the money that they need, and a grocery store chain in Poland was actually the one who won the bid, and they went ahead and returned the medal back to her. So I thought that was great.
And listen, I was thinking the exact same thing of the possibility of whoever won the medal in the bid more than likely would have it in their home for a week or two to show off with their friends and then return it, because it comes full circle. That is, Joe, I'm telling you, that's the power of sports.
Agreed.
That is the power of sports. There are so many different branches of great stories that comes from the power of sports. And that is a perfect one. You are absolutely the superstar today to bring that up. Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm going to bring the flip. I have a horrific story, and I think that we probably are all, and we're not going to get overtly political because that's not the tone of our show or the network, but there's a story about a Paralympic woman from Afghanistan. She was scheduled to be the first female participant from Afghanistan in the Paralympics. She was born with a disability. She's trained for years, and now, unfortunately, the Taliban have taken over. And not only isn't she going to be allowed to come, she's literally in fear for her life because she's a woman who made advancement over the course of when the Taliban's been out of power. So So that's a heartbreaking story right there. So I think that really speaks to the power of sports in one regard. It really elevated this young woman who really, even with the advances Afghanistan made, I mean, women were still up and coming and emerging in regard to human rights and opportunities. And now, unfortunately, it's just a tragedy in so many regards.
Well, fret not, because I see an opportunity for something positive to come out of that. Again, there's an opportunity because the powers that be in sports have contacts, and that makes a great story. So someone has a connection, and they have that relationship. They make a phone call or two, and they say, let's get her out. So let's take a step back, take a deep breath, pray on it, and let's hope for a great story to come out of that, because there's still time for a great story to come out of that. It's not over yet.
You're right. And I love that perspective, and hopefully she gets out and she's liberated, but unfortunately others will be left behind. But we have to concentrate on, right? We're going to concentrate on what we can't control any of it. So hopefully you're right. I'm going to keep an eye on that story. That's a great idea and a great perspective. And it's already in the national news. So I'm sure you're right. There'll be a lot of political endeavors to free her. So that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
So now, where do you want to go next? Should we go to? We can go back to.
Let's go to Tim Tebow.
All right.
Let's go to Tim Tebow. Justin, I know Justin and I were going. Justin did a great job of keeping me updated, and I read a little bit of it was either on Instagram or Twitter. Somebody was making fun, through a meme or whatever of Tim Tebow. And I was like, does that mean he got cut? And the next thing you know, it hit the wire. And the next thing you know, everything was coming across Tim Tebow got cut. And listen, Tim Tebow is from my hometown. He gave it one last shot to try to play for his hometown team, Jacksonville Jaguars. And hey, not very many people on the planet, right? Let's compare the story you just told us about the young lady for the Paralympics wanting to have an opportunity to compete but can't, or there's difficulty, there's hurdles, where Tim Tebow has an opportunity and he takes advantage of it, right? So he took advantage of an opportunity to try to live his dream to continue to play football. Nothing wrong with it. I wrote an op-ed about it, and thank goodness I have a PR guy who held that he held my op-ed back. He didn't submit it. In other words, he waited. He wanted to wait for the right opportunity. But I'll follow the sword. I'll tell you what the op-ed said. It pretty much in 30 seconds, I'll tell you. The op-ed talked about the opportunity, where a lot of people were saying it was because of his privilege, and right, white privilege, right? And I was like, listen, it could be somewhere down the road, down the totem pole, so to speak, that is white privilege. But no, it's privilege because he's an athlete, right? It's privilege because he has a brand. It's privilege because he established himself as an athlete. And it's not his fault that he has a great relationship with the new head coach. And it's not his fault that he's from Jacksonville. So everything basically fell in line. And it wasn't white privilege because he wasn't trying out for quarterback. He actually finally took a step back and said, hey, listen, I'm not going to make it as a quarterback. That ship has sailed. Now, let me try for the tight end position, because Jacksonville's tight end isn't an all-pro tight end. He's not setting the world on fire. So he had a shot, right? So that's pretty much my perspective on why folks shouldn't be upset that Tim Tebow earned an opportunity to try out as a tight end for his hometown team. And unfortunately, he didn't make it. He got cut.
So Adrian's saying it's not because of white privilege, but it is because of his status and relationship. And I think that's controversial in some regards, because we have sports commentators and reporters out there saying that because of that relationship, another young athlete who was robbed of that opportunity, so that's where part of the controversy comes in. And I think the memes, I don't know if you've seen some of the memes, they have Tim Tebow trying out for the curling, which is Brandon's favorite sport, and
it's some bad ones out there.
And I think, he's the butt of the joke in many regards, but people fail to remember that he is a very skilled and talented athlete. He may no longer be at the ability and possess the ability to be in the pros, but he's he's phenomenal. He's a much better athlete than, certainly besides you, Bo, he's a much better athlete than anybody I know. So I think that the people who are throwing hiding behind the keyboard and sitting on the couch with their potato chips are
those Monday morning quarterbacks. But let's stick to what Adrian said. Yes, it is because of his status and it is because of his relationships. But most of us also earn or receive opportunities because of our relationships and because of our status. If you're a good person, right? If you're a good person and you're not a troublemaker, and there's an opportunity for you to get a job or at least interview for a job, that's networking, right? Yeah. That's what it's. And then if you have a relationship with someone in the organization and you make it through that first interview, hey, that's what most people look for when they're trying to interview for a job with a company, a corporation, a nonprofit, or whatever, right? If you're in Hollywood, you're looking for that relationship to earn or to get that part that you're dreaming about. So for people to be so judgmental, and what's the word, Joe, help me out, that I'm looking for? Begins with an N. It begins with an N. What's the word I'm looking for? It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, to go from saying how someone received their opportunity, and then turn around and then when it's your opportunity, you expect it to happen. I mean, it's just not fair, right? It's totally not fair. It's hypocritical. That's a good word. Yeah. Hypocritical. That's the word. That's a good word. Hypocritical. So a lot of folks are hypocrites. A lot of folks are Monday morning quarterbacks, right? Come on. They would take that opportunity in a minute, and they're complaining about an opportunity someone else got. What did George say? We have
George is here. I want to say hi to George and hi to Randy. We have Justin, Adrian. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. So George is saying it was always based on being a Meyer man for the chemistry to get the player comfortable with Meyer. That's all. Tebow did his job well. The team is all in with Meyer, per many reports coming out of the camp. So essentially, I believe George is saying Tebow was brought in I understand.
As a favor for the Meyer. Yeah, right. Yeah. And listen, it happens all the time, Joe. It happens all the time in the NFL and other sports, but it just doesn't make the national news because that person isn't Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is a lightning rod and has been for years. So listen, get a guy a break. I would have loved to come off the street and try out for strong safety for my hometown team if I would have been given that opportunity. So I don't use the word HATE. So I'm not going to H on anybody, but I'm definitely not going to H on Tim Tebow for taking the opportunity to see if he had something still in the tank, so to speak.
Well, I completely understand the scenario. We have a very similar scenario here on the Bo and Joe show. I brought you in because you are a lightning rod, and I'm taking advantage of. I'm bringing you on for the camaraderie factor, like Urban Meyer did. So to make the fans comfortable with the show. So I totally get it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Should we stick with the NFL, or what else do I have? We also have the Naomi Osaka's back in with her contentious relationship with the press. I don't know if you saw that this week. And, that's something that I think that, I don't know if you heard the interview or read the interview. It was pretty contentious. Yeah, and I believe that the reporter was certainly baiting her and trying to get a reaction. Again, she was talking about something altruistic. She was donating the proceeds of the tournament to Haiti relief, the Haiti disaster fund, and he had to turn it back around and bring her her relationship with the media into the spotlight again. And really, even his tone was so derogatory and condescending, and he was essentially implying that the media propelled her to success and fueled her outside interest. I found it very disconcerting, very disrespectful, and I found it troubling, actually. What do you think?
I didn't hear the question, but I saw the interview clip, and I didn't hear the part that brought on that emotion.
He essentially asked her, he said to her, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, he essentially said to her, you hate being here and speaking to us in the media in this forum, meaning a press conference. And he said, how are you juggling your responsibility as a player and essentially acquiescing to our needs as the press, because essentially you're relying upon us for all of your outside interests. So
here's what I'd say to that. Obviously, he was being a gluteus maximus, right? A butt wipe. And I think I've said this before. If you're within an industry, or if you have your teammates, right? The first option of managing the team is the team has to police itself first. If the team can't police itself, that's when the coach gets involved, right? So the media as a whole, as an industry, as a collective, need to start policing each other. Now, what does that mean? Because a media person might hear that and go, oh, you're trying to silence us. No. What I'm saying is, listen carefully to the media people out there. You need to police each other. If you want to get the job done and ask great questions, right? Then ask great questions. But don't ask those type of questions that are condescending, rude, obnoxious, right? Make no sense. People around you can feel that person's trying to ask a gotcha question. The reporters have to police each other so they can maintain their level of respect. But eventually, if the athletes who they have to cover decide, no, we're not talking to y'all because y'all can't police yourself, it's going to make their job difficult.
So Adrian has a different perspective. He's saying her agent was wrong. The question asked by the reporter was fair, and he posed the question delicately. So I didn't actually see the press conference. I read it. So I think that maybe that's the tone.
Right.
And then he's making another point. I do believe, though, based on her history, that it wasn't the subject at the time. I do believe that it was probably insightful. It was trying to incite a reaction, and he got one. And then this is true. I did read this as well. And Adrian's bringing up another point when she actually was asked if she wanted to move on to another question, and she said no, she wanted to answer the question. But I felt as if from her response that she was essentially saying, I'm not going to let you intimidate me, and I'm going to answer the question, because he answered the question because she asked him to clarify the question. And I suppose it could be the tone of reading it as opposed to listening to it. And I'll have to go back and listen to the tape now because I'm curious. But I think based on the history, I don't know. Her agent said he was a bully. And maybe that was just for more media coverage. Who knows? I mean, we don't, I guess here's an entirely different perspective. And I'm curious, Adrian, did you watch it or did you read it? I would be interested to know.
Like I said, I caught the part where she was answering questions about Haiti, donating her prize money to Haiti because, her father's from Haitian descent. And so it was, that part of the question I thought was perfect because that's a good thing. And so, but the way you read or said the question, the way I heard it, it sounded like he was poking, being condescending, trying to, pull an emotion out of her that it just wasn't, it wasn't the right time. I mean, if you're talking about a serious topic, there are people who died in Haiti. Why in return bring up the question or spark a conversation about her not liking the media? See, that's the thing, right? Right. Your words matter, right? And if it's a journalist, that person was trained, words matter. So use the right words.
Right. And Adrian is saying, I'm going to bring up another comment. He's saying the questions about Haiti came right behind it, and that's when she got more emotional. Okay. I just think that true, I think that the press conference was supposed to be about Haiti, and the press always has a way of turning it back to the sensational topic that's going to get them leverage. I mean, he's doing his job too, and I'm sure that that clip's going to get him publicity and further his career in the right forums and avenues. And I'm all for propelling yourself forward, but I don't necessarily think we want to do it by hurting others. I don't want to elevate. I don't want anybody to elevate. I don't want to elevate myself back on the back of anybody else's pain. And I think that that's really my main point.
Right. Gotcha. Yep. And listen, I'm a board member of the Delco Press Club. I absolutely am 100% supportive of the press. But again, you have to be able to, the press have to police themselves. And if I feel and you feel and other people feel that question was out of bounds, then millions of people might feel that question was out of bounds. So that person, he or she that asked that question may elevate themselves within their organization because it was considered a tough question. But there's two sides of that coin. There are other people out there who are going to not like him, and they're going to come at him because remember, we're in a social media world. It's easy to find people.
Right. Even us, we're kind of criticizing him, critiquing him. I will say I don't typically like to speak in the negative. So we're critiquing him and potentially I'll say we're giving him some constructive criticism. I like to keep it positive.
Mm-hmm.
But
there you go.
If he saw the clip, he may think otherwise, right? He may not take it. And so Adrian, here, I think that you're proving it right here. Here's the other side of the story. And Adrian, yeah, I will talk about that, Justin. So Adrian's saying, Justin has so many comments, I lose the other ones. But Adrian is saying that reporter has a history of being a bully. And I think that was his intent. So.
Well, and again, if he has a history, people need to have a conversation with him and say, listen, you're going to make our jobs difficult because when other athletes when they're trying to get exclusives or get the inside or deeper story, they're going to be like, listen, no, we don't want to deal with you because one of your colleagues is, going around bullying our, contemporary. So those things are real.
Agreed. So let's touch base on COVID. It's obviously ramping up across the country, unfortunately, and we have the Delta variant, but it's also creeping in and pervading the sports world as well. We have Kirk Cousins who's refusing. Now, I don't want to say refusing, but up until this point, he has made the decision that he's not going to get vaccinated. And you can tell that when you hear Mike Zimmer speaking about it, he's asked about it.
He's annoyed.
Yeah, he's frustrated for sure. And I think that, you and I have spoken about the role of a quarterback in an organization. And obviously this is an anomaly and hopefully it's an anomaly and it doesn't come up again and throughout the course of our history. But should a quarterback should Kirk Cousins be taking one for the team and get himself vaccinated for the good of the organization?
Absolutely. That's an easy one. He is, if not the real leader on the team, he is perceived as the leader on the team because there's history behind a quarterback being anointed the leader of the team. You can't run from that. That's why Kirk Cousins hasn't won a Super Bowl. That is exactly why his deep character is now showing up. He's not a true leader. Therefore, he's got a lot of talent, but he's not a true leader. Therefore, he's never going to win a Super Bowl. And guess what? He's going to run. And the reason why Mike Zimmer more than likely is frustrated, because Mike Zimmer knows it's going to cause a distraction in the locker room.
Right.
Grown men.
It's more than a distraction.
Go ahead.
It has the potential. It has the potential to shut the team down. So it's more so than that. And they already said the problem is that if you're unvaccinated, separate accommodations, there's other precautions that have to be put in place. There's a separation of the team. There's masks. It's really difficult to be a leader when there's a segregation and you're segregated from your team. And I agree there. My husband's a longtime Minnesota Vikings fan, so he's not happy when I hear that. Brandon is also a Minnesota Vikings fan, and it's troubling, but they really just can't get out of their own way. Really, it's been decades right now.
If it ain't one thing, it's another, right? And we talked about this. This is going to ring a bell because we talked about this. You can't mess with grown men's money. You got grown men making lots of money in that locker room. And as soon as you mess with the wrong person's money, that is a problem. Can you imagine a 6'6", 6'7", 325-pound guy walking up to you saying, "Why you messing with my money?" Oh my goodness, that is terrifying. So I'm telling you, it's going to get bad. It's going to get real bad. And Mike Zimmer knows it because he knows there's so many different personalities in that locker room. Guys come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religions, all of that. But the thing about football is you do it as a team. And if one person rocks the boat, it ruins the chemistry for the entire team, because then you're going to have the team divide. Some guys will be in Kirk Cousins' corner, but they still got the shot because they realized they didn't want to be that guy who didn't get the shot. And then you're going to have the other side of the locker room of guys who got the shot, who didn't have a problem getting the shot, saying, "Oh, what does he think? He's special?" I'm telling you, it's a problem.
It's a problem. And hi, Jason just get out of work. He's hopping on and saying hi to us as well. Hi, Jason. We shouted everybody else out, so I'll bring Jason up. So hi,
Jason.
Jay. So I want to speak about COVID in general. So then we have, on the flip side, we have the Atlanta Falcons. The entire team is vaccinated. They're the first team to have 100% vaccination rate. And so that's the flip side. You're getting such positive press. And of course, the vaccination is controversial. And, I do support people's decision to decide. But I will say this, that even in my area now, we have full organizations. For instance, there's a local college here, and it's has students from abroad, and they've made a mandate to their employees: if you're not vaccinated by September 3rd, you're fired. Pack it up and go. So the NFL is an organization. It's a private, it's a publicly traded entity, I'm sure. And the reality is,
they're not.
It's privately funded.
Private. No.
So private.
The NFL is a private organization that has, in the laws of the country, there can be no one. They have an antitrust agreement. No one can create another entity like the NFL. That's why many people have to create entities similar, but it can't be exactly like the NFL. They have a standing agreement written by the government. It is a serious monopoly. They control everything.
Which makes it more compelling. If you want to tell your team they have to get 100% vaccinated, but of course they're not going to fire a QB. They're not going to fire a leading QB. I mean, and this is something, I've been avoiding this topic, but Justin brings it up every week. I mean, it brings up the issue of Colin Kaepernick, right? He was ousted based on, and it's up for debate, but I think that most reasonable people would agree that he he was cut from the NFL essentially because of his political ideologies and his stance on the national anthem. And really, if it happened today, he certainly would probably still be in the NFL. But I think that, think about that now. You had that huge controversy that really overshadowed the NFL for how long has it been now? I'd say a good 5 years, and we're still talking about Colin Kaepernick. So Kirk Cousins could be the same issue. We could be talking about COVID and Kirk for the next 5 years, and I'm sure the team wants to avoid that.
And the NFL apologized to Kirk Cousins last year after the George Floyd situation. They realized they were wrong.
They apologized. They apologized to Colin. You said Kirk.
Yes,
right?
After the George Floyd,
right.
killing,
Agreed.
They apologized to Colin Kaepernick and their fans and basically the world. The commissioner did, saying we got it wrong. So, and that was 5 years late, right?
Yeah,
it was 5 years late. So,
5 years. 5 years in a career late. I mean, really, his career is over essentially.
Yes.
I don't see them bringing him back because
you
have too many. Yeah, you have too many young and up and coming. 5 years in the life of a professional athlete. I mean, some of the Olympians are amazing, but those are sports that probably don't have as much competition, I would say. But you have these young people coming up in the NFL and all. It's just, you're not going to get an I'll say seasoned professional. Look at Michael Jordan. Even if you're out for a year, it's very difficult to come back and perform at the standards that you once had.
Depending on the age. Well, remember, Michael left, came back and won 3 championships after he won 3, the first 3. But then when he left and came back as a wizard, it was over. It was just basically trying to empty the tank because somebody must have dared him that he couldn't come back, right? But in terms of the shot and the vaccine, it's going to cause problems. I like the fact that Atlanta accomplished the 100% because look where they're located. They're not in a hot spot. They're in a hot state, right?
Right.
My family's in a hot state, Florida. And I've been so busy that finally, I got a phone call yesterday, today. Unfortunately, I had a family member pass away. And
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. And then I went on another social media platform that I have and found out that there are some distant cousins that have passed away in Alabama. So I mean, this thing is real, and I'm not here to do anything but tell people, let's stick to sports. I'm staying in my lane. Forget my personal feelings for my family. When it comes to sports, if you want to participate, you got to follow the rules. And the rules are, if you're going to play football, you need a helmet, shoulder pads, and padding, a cup, right? You need all the things to protect yourself, or you're going to get hurt, period. No ifs, ands, and buts. And you got to get a physical. If you don't do those things and come to practice with the paper sign from your parents and the doctor that you got your physical, you can't participate, period. So for those who want to say, oh, no, I have the right to play. No, you don't. No, the rules are there to protect you. Because I'm going to tell you right now, as a defensive back, I would love for a quarterback or running back to come to practice without pads on, and I have my helmet, shoulder pads on, and I get to tackle them. Oh, that would be a great for me. I would hurt them. I would love to do that, right? But to protect those fools from themselves, they better have a helmet on, they better have a shoulder pads and all the equipment, because I'm coming at them. Once we step on the field, there's no, oh, he's the quarterback with a red jersey on. Hey, Joe, I got kicked out of practice at Villanova multiple times for hitting the quarterback with a red jersey on. I didn't care. Well, let me just say this. A couple of times I did it because I wanted to get kicked out to go study, but the coach didn't know that. He thought I was being a jerk by hitting the quarterback and being mean to him. But the bottom line is, I got shoulder pads and a helmet on. I'm coming at you. You better be ready. If you're not ready, that's on you.
All right, great. Now, should we stick with the NFL? I'm going to impress you with some of my knowledge and some of the research I did this week. So I was trying to read about the preseason, and I didn't realize that it was shortened by a week. And I read a lot of articles about the potential of players not being able to fully showcase themselves, and is that going to hinder them? And because they're not now, some of the people who may, if they had an extra week, could have potentially been starters, and now they may not be. So does 1 week really make that big a difference?
Nope, sure doesn't. Okay. Because if you think about last year's team, you had 55 guys on the roster, and you have 10 on the practice squad, or maybe 8 on the practice squad. Right? So if you've got 55 on the team from last year, 5 are gone because they were recruited to other teams. They signed new contracts, right? So you add 5, right? You add 5 to replace those 5 that left, right? If those 5 that left were starters, you're replacing those starters with starters, right? So the chances are, out of the 20 to 40 guys that are on that are new to the team, the only 1 or 2 that has an absolute shot of making the team is the first round draft pick, second round draft pick, and maybe the third round draft pick. Maybe. So now, unless you walk on the field as a free agent or a third or fourth or fifth round draft pick, and you are so outstanding, they missed, all the scouts in the league missed your potential and your skill set and in the way that you play. You, for some reason, elevated your game in 3 months after last year, right? The bottom line is, no, that 1 week doesn't hurt, period. It really doesn't, because you're going to get it, everyone's going to get, the starters who have contracts are going to play. They're going to make the team unless they're just that bad for some reason, right? So there's only really an opportunity for 5, maybe 6 guys to make the team, or push some of those guys who are on the fringe, meaning the practice squad. Maybe those are the ones that get the boot, get released, and then you make the practice squad. But only a select few, number 1 draft pick, like the overall number 1 draft pick, right? The number 2, the number 3, first round guys, right? First round, maybe second round, but that's it. So it's not hurting the team.
So George is saying he was shocked that a lot of the stars are sitting out. Too many injuries occurred because they weren't football ready. And he's very disappointed with 80% of the teams who have done this. It's going to take them 3 weeks to get up to NFL speed.
Yeah, the game is changing. There's no more 4 games in the preseason, beat each other up, have season-ending injuries, right? There's no more of that. Now it's, let's get people who need the time to showcase themselves. So the exact opposite is happening, Joe. The guys are getting a chance to showcase themselves who need to showcase themselves. The veterans and the guys on the contract, they don't need to be out there. No, because they can get hurt. They're the stars. They're the guys that played last year, right? So the opposite is happening. Guys are getting a chance to showcase themselves because the starters are not participating.
So Randy's saying he can't wait for the regular season to start. And I don't know, are you going to be able to hold your temper? I mean, Justin's throwing this out to you, Bo. I'm going to show it. It's the Eagles versus the Patriots.
Yes. And I'm going to watch it. Justin. Yes. And we can go back and forth, Justin. Yes, I'm going to watch it. But here's another thing I did before I forget, Joe. Yes, there's only 3 preseason games, but you forgot the most important part. You didn't forget it. You know about it. You just didn't bring it up. They added another game to the season.
Oh, true.
right?
Now,
The owners aren't losing any money here. If anything, they're making more money, right?
so let
They're
me ask
adding a
you
game to the
this.
season.
How do football players get paid? Do they get paid per season, per game? Are there incentives for winning? I'm just curious about how the makeup of their contracts are. Or do they vary across the spectrum?
Well, listen, I retired after college, never had an opportunity to actually play and receive a check from the NFL. So I'm going to be guessing based on what I've heard over the years. But they get paid once a week. They get paid once a week. They're under contract, right? There are incentives in their contracts, right? And so um, at the end of the season, if the team makes the playoffs, there's money available for the winning team and the losing team. The more you win, the more that playoff game check increases. And then you get to the Super Bowl, and then there's a check for the winner and a check for the loser. But within individual contracts, right? The agent negotiates, okay, if my quarterback throws for 5,000 yards for the season, there's a bonus involved. If my running back accomplishes X amount of yards from scrimmage, there's a bonus involved. If the defensive back, the strong safety, right? Me, if I make X amount of tackles, there's a bonus involved. If I get X amount of interceptions, there's a bonus. So yes, there's money to be made all over the place to incentivize the guys to hustle, give more than 110%. Yeah.
Yep. So 80% incentives as well. Not the beautiful light.
I knocked the mic off my phone. All right, I'm back. So yes, there's all kinds of incentives. That's why. Oh, and let's talk about fantasy football.
All right, because George has invited us on Monday night to speak about fantasy football. All right, George, that's not my area of expertise. I'm going to be brushing up this weekend. I am playing fantasy football. The guys have me involved in that, so I'm hoping whatever I learn on Monday night is going to take me right through to the championship.
I just noticed ESPN has a program on fantasy football. So there's got to be other networks that has some programming on fantasy football. So if you have the ability to DVR some stuff, do that, and then watch it during your downtime because you might learn one or two things. You know what I mean from it. The great story that I saw on ESPN. It's about a kid who has a rare disease, was born with a rare disease. And, obviously he wasn't supposed to live past the age of 8, but he's now a teenager. And how does he have fun? His friends taught him fantasy football. So now he feels like the rest of his friends in the neighborhood and in school, and they taught him to play fantasy football, and he's doing pretty well at it. So again, the power of sports brings people together, find a way to belong and get involved in sports. I'm not a big fan of fantasy football, but that doesn't mean I dislike it. But I love that story because I know what the power of sports will do. And there's just great stories out there. And there's another one right there.
That is a great story. So good. George is reassuring me not to. Okay. Thank you, George. The rookies always win their first year.
Yeah, because they're not tainted. They're not right. They're not corrupted by greed because they see certain things a certain way. So yeah, she's gonna knock it out of the park. Absolutely.
So let's make it easy on all of us and just write me a check.
Get her done. Yeah. Just get it done now.
So I promised Justin I would talk about this tonight, and I do love the story myself. So Did you see that Muhammad Ali's
Mm-hmm.
grandson got a technical knockout in his first performance, his first professional boxing match? He was wearing a pair of shorts that his grandfather had given to him. He said he was never going to wear those shorts again. They were blessed and a keepsake that he's going to keep sacred. And I thought that was a great story. I'm not a huge fan of boxing, but I was a Muhammad Ali fan, and I actually love this story.
Yeah, our good friend and good fan and follower Justin kept me updated, and he sent me the information, and it's a great story. And let's see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. If he keeps winning, the pressure will come because the media will apply that pressure. There's good and bad about the media, right? We just talked about it. They can elevate you and they can try to destroy you, right? So let's see how he does. But I saw that picture. It's a great picture, and more power to him. Let's see how it goes. It's a great story.
Yeah, it's a great story. But think about it. It's not just the media pressure. Can you imagine the pressure of just on yourself of living in that legacy? He said he was not only the greatest boxer he ever known, of course, but he said he was also the greatest man he'd ever known. So I think really, and when you think about it in context, you have to believe. I try to keep it positive, but it's really hard to fill those shoes for anybody, even. I mean, perhaps anybody could do it. If anybody could, he could. But even if you don't aspire to that level of greatness, there's going to be I think there's still a lot to be proud of. But as far as you go, you can't necessarily topple Muhammad Ali. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to do that.
I think I have no idea, but I'm only thinking and feeling this based on my experiences of knowing folks who were legacy kids from the music world, the athletic world. It may not be as much pressure as the grandson than it would be if he was the son, right? Or is he the great grandson? I'm not really sure.
I think he's the grandson. I don't think he's the great
grandson. There's a certain level of pressure. Yes, it's pressure. But as the grandson versus the son, to me, it's not equal. But it's still pressure. It's just not equal pressure. So imagine if he was the son of Muhammad Ali. It's just right. But the grandson, it's still pressure, but it just may not. It's not as strong as the son. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, Adrian's bringing up a good point. I forgot about Layla. Layla can speak to living up to his legacy. She went into the boxing arena with his support, of course, and her career was not as lengthy as his. And I think too, she was also, I believe she was. I'm pretty sure that she was a mother. I mean, it's really hard. Can you imagine having a career? It's difficult to have a career in general during your childbearing years, of course. And there are certainly some added nuances if you're a mother and you're having children. But can you imagine being a boxer or any professional athlete? It's really taxing on the body. And I think that, that's something I think you would have to consider if you're a parent, especially a woman. I think anybody would, but just boxing is so tough. And I think as a woman, and I'm not speaking for all women, of course, but you try to keep yourself out of harm's way as much as possible because of your children. And I think she was probably torn. That was a tough legacy.
If I remember correctly, she wasn't necessarily a trailblazer because women were boxing prior to her, but she was the big name that brought a light to female boxing, right? She kind of elevated it, right? This is before MMA and all that stuff. So she was, in that respect, she was a trailblazer. But guess what? She was tough. She could she could throw a punch. So
her father was alive at that time. So
and it didn't hurt. And listen, it didn't hurt. Absolutely gorgeous. It didn't hurt. So she was what Hollywood wanted. She was what Hollywood wanted, and what the athletic world wanted. So she was there at the right time. She did the right thing. And yes, Adrian, she was good. I watched a couple, so
I did
yeah.
too. But not only that, she was likable. I
Oh,
like her. Yeah, I think she's
absolutely.
likable. Yeah.
She was absolutely likable.
So we're getting down to the last 4 minutes, and I forgot about this myself, but of course, Justin never forgets anything. This is something, and I didn't watch it yet, and I'm going to go back and watch it. But what do we think about the Field of Dreams baseball game? That was big news this week, and I didn't hear all of it. So, but I know they're probably going to have another game, and they talk about a movie and all of those things. What do you know about it?
I didn't watch the original game. I watched part of when they re-aired it from like midnight till like, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning. I watched part of that. And then I, got up after I fell asleep 3 hours later and watched the 7 o'clock in the morning ESPN highlight version. It was a great game. Walk-off home run. You gotta love it. So for the fans in that, was it South Dakota, North Dakota? Where were they? Utah? Where were they? But wherever it was a great game. For TV, it was a great game. And I liked it. I enjoyed it. Like, again, I didn't watch it every minute, but from what I saw, it was good. And hey, it was different. And it's one of the greatest sports movies out there. So
they were in Iowa,
Iowa.
But Adrian's saying they're going to, let's see, they're going to ruin it by playing games behind it next year. It won't be the same the second time around, and that's probably true. Nothing is as special typically as the first time out.
As the first time, right? It's like that first kiss. Yep, I hear you.
Well, we're down to our final 2 minutes, and time just flies. I still have more. Did I get to everything on my list? The only thing I didn't get to, I think, was and that could have tied in with COVID, and I can't remember if I talked about the NCAA and the Nebraska Cornhuskers controversy, but we'll have to table that for next week. I'm going to give you the floor for a minute and give some closing thoughts.
Listen, we appreciate all of our viewers and listeners. Do us a favor. We love your questions. Please get vaccinated. Wear a mask if you don't get vaccinated, or stay safe. Your family needs you. Your friends need you. We like you. And, do the right thing, because there's lots of conversations we want to have with you, from now till the end of the football season and roll into the NBA and then roll into baseball. We got a lot of conversations to have. So, do the right thing, protect yourself, because there are people out there that are.
Yeah, it's no joke.
It's no joke.
So I want to tell everybody too, since we're talking about how much we want to keep in touch with you. So you have many ways to keep in touch with us now. The Bo and Joe Show is on TikTok. We're on LinkedIn. By the end of the week, we have the Bo and Joe group on Facebook, so we can interact all week long. Everybody, you don't have to miss us for long. I know you've probably been replaying us all week, everybody, but you don't have to do that now. We can actually have live interactive conversations. We'll be on Instagram. We're going to be on Twitter. We're going the whole spectrum. I'm even thinking of putting all of these shows onto a YouTube channel. So we're branching out. We want to expand our reach. And if you can help us do that, we would appreciate it. And actually, we're going to be on. We've been asked to appear on George's show, and George, tell us the name again, because I'm going to. I know I don't want to mispronounce it. What is it, Bo? Is it dual? I'll have to look it up. I don't want to. George, help us out. And then George, how can people find that? That's a good point. How do people tune in? I'll actually share it to the Bo and Joe group. I'll share it onto Coast to Coast Entertainment if it's on Facebook. I want to see what it is again.
It's Oh man, what happened? I had it right here.
It's called The Dueling Aces.
Dueling Aces.
Oh, here he is, right here. George is giving us The Dueling Aces, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So 2 hours. We won't steal all the time, but Bo and I can talk, George. Are you sure you don't want to rescind? And they are on So Perfect. They're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We haven't tried Twitch. We may have to look into that. The guy, Coast to Coast actually tried Twitch, and we didn't. And I guess the guys didn't love it. So that's something to keep in mind. So great. So everybody can catch us on Monday night again, and then we'll be back on Wednesday, of course, and we're going to spread the word about all of our social media platforms. And we really appreciate the invite. Oh no, we may have to reschedule, George. Adrian Ferris is going to be watching the Yankees versus the Braves on Monday night. You'll have to watch the replay. And I will tell you this, Adrian, the Barber brothers, who are the executives here at Coast to Coast, they are huge Braves fans, and they're going to pop onto the show one of these days. They said they're going to be our guest stars, and we're going to hold them to that. They're very great. And George is reminding us it's recorded. So thanks, everybody. And of course, Bo, I want to say, I want to thank you for being my co-host. I feel as if by osmosis, I'm learning more about sports just by being on the screen next to you. So I'm going to be an expert before you know it. And of course, I always like to close in the same way by thanking our man behind the scenes. Chris, thanks to your help, and we genuinely appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you Monday night.